Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thank you all for coming today to celebrate and hopefully acquire Peter's final book on the history of Mars aircraft. There was only ever going to be 3 volumes. This is the 4th volume of the trilogy. Quote Hitchhiker's Guide. And it's been a long, drawn-out process. I'm Malcolm Fillmore. I've had the pleasure, I think, of editing the book. As we were saying to Peter earlier, when we have this 30-70 relationship, 30% he quite enjoys me and 70% he hates the living daylights out of me. But we actually got there in the end, and the product, as I say, is extremely worthwhile. We at Air Britain are delighted to have the opportunity of publishing all these books. And I say the first volume, I've only got 1 copy left. It was fully sold out. So if anybody wants the last remaining first volume, I've got one here. Otherwise, we can give you some discounts if you're buying more than one. And just by way of a final Air Britain thing, we've also published a book on the de Havilland cabin moths, which again, done by Stuart Mackay of the Moth Club, and again, that was one that I had the pleasure of editing. So we do have a few of those if anybody also wants those. So I'll just hand over now to Peter to say a few things about what he's been up to and the books and where he is, what all the amazing number of things he's still got to do. Peter.
Thank you. First I must thank you all for coming, especially those that come from afar. I wasn't expecting such a big turnout. And thank you once again. This is something I never thought would happen. The 4th part of a trilogy, which is rather different, but we finally made it. It only took about 14 years and it was very complicated. I just hope I've done everybody justice that have been so kind in generously donating all the Mars aircraft collections, archives from F.G. Mars and George Mars. The family have been absolutely wonderful, and I just hope that I've done them proud. It's been a lifelong obsession, for want of a better word, I suppose, but I've always had this thing about Mars aircraft. I attended the first and last of their open days in 1947, and somehow I've survived this long. I've also flown in about 3 different Mars aircraft, Magister, Messenger and Gemini. Haven't flown in the Falcon yet, but hopefully one day. I believe we might, I'm keeping my fingers crossed, we might get a Mars Messenger in an hour's time, because Shipping and Airlines, who always support us, have said they're coming between 12 and 1, but they haven't said how they're coming, so I'm keeping my fingers crossed. So I won't rabbit on anymore because there's things to do, and thank you again.
The rest of this meeting, I think, is going to be social and chit-chat,
Yeah.
and talking about Mars and talking to Peter, hopefully buying some books, and just enjoying the weather, which is remarkable today in relation to what it was yesterday. But that this is what people call climate change, I think.
Oh, good. Might we just ask about a little more detail of what is in the latest volume, because it's an extremely interesting variety, isn't it? Of,
Well, it is,
things
because
one may not have ever thought of before.
I mean, the third volume ended with the debacle of Miles Aircraft Limited at Woodley when it went into receivership, and Peter is at great lengths to talk about the rogue accountant, and Richard is. I'm a chartered accountant. I'm also an insolvency practitioner. And,
Shall we just say
so this one.
that
Yes, when F.G. Miles and George Miles resurrected their empire after the debacle in 1948.
the destruction of Miles Aircraft in 1947 by an auditor whose name was Hogg, and I've just received the last couple of days a very incriminating letter which throws a completely new light on everything. And I don't know quite, I think I might finish up by sending everybody a copy of this letter,
Yes,
because
please.
it just doesn't.
Would you like me to interpret it?
You haven't
Yes.
seen it
No.
either. But
Because I started off as an insolvency practitioner in the insolvency industry in 1965, which is not that long after all this debacle took place. So I'm well aware of the practices of insolvency profession in those days, which were more than a bit dubious, particularly in certain firms.
shall we say that this auditor wasn't employed by the company, but was put in
By the
by
bank.
a chap called Gatty Thornt.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So that's another story.
But the story is in the third volume.
Volume 3, yeah. The whole grisly story of the destruction of Miles Aircraft, and I don't use the word lightly because FG also uses the word destruction, and the resurrection by this gentleman was a total and utter disaster, and well,
But
it should never have happened.
But we were living in the immediate post-war years, and you know there were lots of problems in production in those days, of course.
Yeah.
But I don't disagree with you. There could have been a better answers done in
there should have
1947,
been,
48.
yeah. But
And to read the full stories, you will need, of course, to buy the full set of the books.
In triplicate.
And I mean, unlike many aviation books, this actually does tells the story of the Miles, their companies and such like, as well as all the detailed histories of the aircraft. So it's both an aircraft history book for those who like aircraft histories, and it tells you the full story, the history of Miles and some of the
I think,
unlikely things that he did, like
yeah,
stealing the wife of his former partner.
the confusion bit about Volume 4 is that F.G. Miles, when he started up again at Red Hill in 1948, was really only looking to do things that might make a profit, whereas George Miles was only really interested in aeroplanes, knowing full well that they probably wouldn't, but that's another story, which I've tried to explain in Volume 4, because George Miles finished up going down to Airspeeds as their assistant chief designer.
For only for a few years, though.
Yeah,
Then he came back.
with the idea of taking over as chief designer when the designer of Airspeeds retired. And George Miles picked up a real can of worms with the ambassador, because it wasn't, although it looked beautiful, it was a real structural disaster. And George Miles managed to sort it out. And then he became responsible for designing the Vampire Trainer. So that was his thing at Airspeeds, which by that time had been taken over by de Havilland's. Another long story, George didn't want to go to Hatfield, so he then joined his brother at Shoreham again. And the different companies that both FG and George formed, well, it makes a book. It's very complicated. I hope I've done it in a way that you can hopefully understand. It only took 14 years, but...
But I mean,
yeah.
it's important to recognise that, I mean, a lot of what FG did, and George did after the war, they did do some airplanes, but they also got involved in electronics and
Yeah.
a whole range of other things, some of which those businesses still survive in one form or another.
Flight simulators and everything that you can think of.
Because
Yeah, what?
if you come across a company called Link Miles, that was formed out of Miles. So there is continuity going on still.
Yes. Well, when they finally packed up, they had their factory over the other side of the river bank, FG did, and when he was getting towards the end of his life and retiring, he sold the whole thing to Hunting, and Hunting carried on with all the projects that he'd left. So it packed up in a respectable way. 1978.
So yeah. And there are obviously some of the products now. The Miles Student, which is illustrated on the front cover, is now in the Woodley Museum. Woodley is a bit disappointed because the factory, I think, has now been finally demolished, is it?
Last year. Or went last year?
It went last year,
Last year.
because that was a sad thing. It ought to have had a listing, proper listing on it.
We tried, but ultimately failed. It altered too much.
But it was a nice looking building as well.
It's very sad that there's nothing left now. And there's nothing left over here either, because Riverbank has now been demolished as well.
Yeah.
But
So,
the name will never
well,
die.
thanks to Peter, the name will never be forgotten, because we've got all these wonderful books that you have spent effectively most of your life actually working on.
Yeah. But I've been on the books, I suppose, for the last 20 years really, isn't it?
Well,
2004.
This was published in... We published it in 2009, but it was about 4 years going,
Yeah. When this gentleman rang me up in 2004, I'd been trying to get Putnam's to do a revised copy of Don Brown's book. That's what started it. But then the book publishing in 2004 was getting a bit dodgy, and Putnam's were being taken over, and the people that were taking them over were being taken over, and we weren't getting anywhere. Malcolm said, "Will you stop buggering about and let us do it?" And that's when it all started seriously, very seriously. But I should also, I would like to just say a few words about Phil Butler. Yeah, because thanks to Phil Butler, who's no longer with us now, I couldn't have put half the information on the history of the RAF aircraft in that book that is now there. Phil spent hours helping me with that. Absolutely incredible. But as I say, he's no longer with us now.
Phil passed away last year.
Really sad. But yeah, we've had help.
Peter will go on forever.
We've had help from so many people who are now no longer with us, and that's also very sad. But joys are getting old, as they say, but I don't see much joy in it.
No, so there's an awful lot of, it's a combination of telling the story of what actually happened, together with, the full details of all of the aviation projects that they have done.
There's also tributes, all the tributes are in there as well to the FG and George, thankfully, to George's family and FG's family.
And one of the things we still are in the process now of doing is actually, well, Peter's still going through all the various archive materials, and those that relate to Shoreham are being deposited at the West Sussex County Archives at Chichester. All the material relating to Woodley is being kept at the Reading County Archives in Reading. And there is some stuff at the Woodley Museum, but I think that, Jerry, you were going to start sorting some of that out.
I'm working with Peter on
Julian, I mean, I was talking about Jerry, Julian. Yeah, so all of that material, again, will be preserved in public access
the
archives.
Royal Berkshire Archives work on the same principles as National Archives. It's accessible. You can get a reader's ticket and you'll be able to look everything up.
And they were very pleased to take it. I took the first of those
wonderful.
with you, and they were extremely pleased.
They were over the moon. They had nothing on Mars aircraft. All they had was a minute book from the Reading Aero Club in 1934. Unbelievable. But they also look after all the councils in Berkshire, and as Woodley comes under Wokingham, everybody is very pleased with what we're doing, and I've at last found a very good home for all the stuff, which is great.
Peter, could I ask you a quick question, please?
Yeah.
I'm a novice here, probably everyone else in the room knows the answer. What is your personal link with Miles? Did you work for them?
I never worked for them.
Why are you so interested in them as a
That's a very good
project?
question. Around about 1946, 47, when I was just getting old enough to understand. Well, I've been interested in airplanes all through the war, but where we lived, we didn't see many, but there were three of us, and we were very keen cyclists, and by 1947, we used to take a magazine called The Aeroplane Spotter, which came out every fortnight, and they used to put little bits on what was happening, and we saw a little bit that was happening at Woodley on the 20th of July 1947, never forget the date. Miles Aircraft were having an at-home day, and the at-home day was going to be what we thought for Miles Aircraft employees, but we thought, well, what's 60 miles? It's okay, we're going. If they don't let us in, we'll look over the fence. When we got there, we found they were letting everybody in. And that's when it all started.
Okay.
They
How about your
opened
friends? Did they have the same
The
interest as you
whole
had?
airdrome was open, the factory,
Fabulous.
they had a static display, they laid on a flying display, they flew 12 different types of aircraft,
Goodness me.
and the sun shone.
No wonder you remember the date then so well.
Sorry?
No wonder you remember that date so well.
Yeah, I can never
brilliant.
forget it.
And that's how it all started.
That must have been the start of it, yeah.
Excellent.
We used to cycle miles, and
Well, thank you very much for that answer.
Yeah.
Hope you didn't mind me asking.
I did finish up in the aircraft industry,
Oh,
but
Not for
not
them.
for miles,
No.
unfortunately.
Oh, fantastic.
I
It's
was
been a
there.
lifelong interest for you,
I was
obviously.
only 17 in 1947. God, seems like
Work that one
yesterday.
out.
Thank you very much, Peter. Thank you.
Thanks, Peter.
Any other? Please do feel free to ask questions of Peter without having total silence.
I have a little word I'd like to say. Good afternoon, everybody, or morning, whatever it is. My name's Jonathan Miles, so I met G. Miles' grandson. Jeremy was my dad, who died sadly in 2023. I've only got to know Peter relatively recently, so I was sort of vaguely aware of what was going on in the background, but didn't have much knowledge about my own family's interest in, well, extraordinary capacity of interest in aeroplanes and many other things. For some reason, it sort of escaped me for some reason. I grew up kind of ignorant of knowing what my grandparents and George Miles was up to. Now I'm a lot more aware, thanks to Peter. And I've recently visited George Miles' daughter, Karen Miles, who lives in Scotland, and is also a certain age. And she and her husband are obviously massively interested in everything that Peter's doing and very informative and very influential in some of Peter's research. Together we've constructed a few words of gratitude, if you don't mind me speaking loudly above the noise of the planes outside. So on behalf of Karen and her husband Jim, their children, myself, my wife who's not here today, but my daughter Lola and my son, we would like to express our deepest gratitude for your monumental achievement in recording such a significant period in our family's history and in aviation history through your 4 volumes of Miles Aircraft. Your work is far more than a historical account. It is a celebration of imagination, originality, courage, and perseverance. Through your meticulous research, you've captured the visionary spirit of the Miles brothers from their humble origins, which we know is in the cleaning business in Portslade, and the artistry of Blossom Miles. And they pursued their dream of advancing light aviation for Britain, often leading the way in cutting-edge global technology and exploring a vision of social equality that was revolutionary at the time. The scope of their achievements, from the blended wing design of the late 30s to the groundbreaking M52 supersonic project in 1943, plus scores of patents and other designs, including the biro and the first photocopier, highlight their remarkable contributions to aviation and to the world. Interestingly, your author works, also shed light on the destruction, as we've said earlier today, of all the Miles enterprises in 1947 by a Machiavellian financial director who, having been appointed by Barclays Bank to work at the highest level of trust with the Miles team, secretly cooked the books and crucified the Miles business, including Miles Aircraft in Ireland, the Biro Pen Company, the photocopier, everything. All went under his hammer. All the gory details, as Peter keeps telling me, are in volume 3. Yes, and of course you need to read volume 1, 2 and 4 to make sense of it. You also describe how FG and co-director Sir William Mount, who incidentally is the maternal grandfather to our ex-Prime Minister David Cameron, they survived an attempt by the Board of Trade to ruin their personal reputations 17 days in the Old Bailey, which they survived and came out tops. So the way you tell these parts of the story with such straightforward honesty and clarity reflects the extensive research and dedication that you've put into this project, a life project, which is both poignant and enlightening. The result is a set of books that not only bring life to the story of our family, but also stand as a testament to technical genius and historical depth. The completeness of your work, coupled with your ability to make even the most complex topics engaging and accessible, is unparalleled. Karen Miles' husband Jim, who has been closely following the Miles Aircraft story for many, many years, as attests to me with confidence that your books are among the best he has ever encountered. We are truly fortunate that you chose to tell the story of our family, and we will be forever grateful to you for your dedication to preserving the important chapter in British aviation history. From the bottom of our hearts, all the Mileses are still with us, not many of us, but a few. Thank you, Peter.
Thank you.
We feel incredibly privileged that you chose this family as your canvas. And with sincere appreciation from us all, a little something from my grandfather's desk, from FG's personal desk. I think it's a Peregrine. It's an M18 Peregrine, I think, with a little dedication to it.
I don't know what to say.
Nothing. So you've said it. You've said it all.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
Well done.
I'll sit down.
Very good.
Thank you very much.
And perhaps we can look forward to another book, which is the autobiography, the original autobiography of F.G.
Oh,
which he's
my
working
God.
on.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
And to see Miles Peregrine. And to seeing a Miles Peregrine.
Yes, there it is.
Thank you. I'd just like to actually pick up on that to tell people that Peter is actually found in the archive F.G. Miles' own autobiography,
Yeah.
which went up to, and then suddenly stopped.
In 1961.
Stopped in 1961.
Yeah.
So you're having to become his autobiographical
Muse. Yeah.
muse. Yeah.
There was a very sad reason for it stopping, but that will be explained.
So there will. I
Eventually.
don't think it's going to necessarily be Miles Volume 5, but it will be. Hopefully, you are organising for it to be published, I believe.
Am I?
Are you? Somebody is.
Yes, of course. Yeah. Well, yes. If not you, then probably yes.
Sorry?
Have you not organised a publisher?
I've now found a publisher,
Oh.
Ah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
and thank you for the privilege of being allowed to actually do this. I've explained, I will explain briefly why it stopped in 1961, but the reason why it stopped is, I think, explained in Volume 3. I will just put a brief reason. I will not finish it because it can be finished, well, it is finished in Volume 3 actually. So whatever he would have said after 1961, I don't think it would have been any more than what is in Volume 3. But what I will do for this autobiography, F.G. Miles was a great reader and a great writer. He wrote many articles, mostly far-sighted. He could see what was wanted when the government hadn't got a clue and usually made the wrong decision anyway. The letters that he wrote to the magazines Aeroplane and Flight during the war and after the war are absolutely unbelievable. So I'm going to try and put all that lot with the autobiography.
And lots of photos.
Oh,
New
there-
photos
there'll
that we
be-
haven't seen before. Yeah.
The autobiography as it stood wasn't illustrated, but that's no problem. Julian will... I have upwards of about 3,000 or 4,000 photographs to choose from, so, which Julian is currently getting lumbered with. Oh dear. So we
when
haven't
do
got
you
a problem.
expect to finish the product?
But hopefully I can, now this is all out the way and I've got quite a few other problems which I'm having to deal with. I want to get concentrating on doing the autobiography now. So next project.
You've got.
But thank you once again, that is highly treasured.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you for what you said. Yeah.
Right.
Oh,
You all right? Right. Well, thank you all, as I say, for attending, and do feel free to come and have a chat to Peter, come and buy some books, come and chat to each other. And it's, I don't know whether this messenger is coming in or not, but we can but hope.
Yeah.
Good day, friend.
Can I just ask
Yeah.
a very simple question?
Yeah.
Why haven't the pair of you got together and produced a calendar and a jigsaw puzzle? Miles aircraft. A collective. Keeps you going.
Yes. It sounds like a good idea, but maybe that's something you could take on.
Well,
Anybody who comes up with an idea has to exploit it. Right. Have you got nothing else to say, have you, Peter?
sorry?
Have you got anything else you want to say?
Not really, I don't think.
It's what you thought. Okay.
Not really.